Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Tin Man Score Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm continuing off with my new Haunted Marathon. And the second video I'm reacting to now is 3 Disturbing True Camping Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag. Okay, here we go.
My name is Steven, and I'm currently 29 years old. I've always been sort of an outdoorsy type of person.
Okay.
Not so much hiking and fishing, but rather knew a lot about camping. Ever since my time in the Boy Scouts, I've always been fascinated with the outdoors. There was just something special about being present with the open wilderness around you, surrounded by nature. Most people tend to view the forest as scary and vast, but I thought a little differently. My point is that there's more to nature than just scary shit. Don't get me wrong, I've been through several rough spots during camping. Everything from a tornado heading my way to almost getting batted around by a grizzly bear. Yes, attacks happen way more than you think. All of these things are pretty terrifying, but there was one instance that scared the piss out of me.
Before he gets into his story, that would be scary, getting attacked by a grizzly bear or some other predator in the woods, because you're just minding your own business, setting up your campsite, and you plan on going hiking or fishing, and you don't know when these animals will just come out of nowhere. But that would be scary.
I was going camping with my girlfriend Sydney in the Madison Range Mountains of Montana.
Okay.
It's a very cold and rough terrain. But seeing as we were experienced hikers/campers, we were ready for this kind of thing. We set off deep into the woods, just hiking along the trails, listening to the sound of leaves and the flow of a small stream nearby. It took us a while, but after a bit, we finally found a clearing to set up camp. It was not the best camping spot, but it would have to make do since we were burning daylight. I set up the tent while Sydney grabbed some firewood to build us a fire for dinner. It was around 6 p.m., and the sun was really starting to set, so we knew we had to make this quick. We set up camp, and after a while, we sat by the campfire cooking our food and downing shots of vodka. Sydney had caught a rabbit earlier and turned it into a damn good stew. At one point after dinner, we were both cozy by the fire doing our couple stuff when Sydney looks to her left into the woods. Being the playful boyfriend I was, I jokingly asked her if she saw a ghost when she tells me to shut up and that she thought she heard something.
I don't know if I can eat stew with rabbit meat in it. Ugh. If someone is with you while camping and they tell you to shh because they heard some noises, you might want to do it before you make them mad, because they're serious.
I listen for anything around, and when I don't hear anything, I come to the conclusion that she was probably just hearing forest sounds. However, she was in denial, declared she was not stupid, and that what she heard was definitely not forest sounds. According to her, she thought she had heard whispering from 2 or more people coming from somewhere in the woods. My drunken state made me still somewhat unaware of the situation, which made me scoff at her and tell her that it was probably fellow campers. She gave me that look of annoyance, and just when I was about to say something, I heard it too. There was definitely someone out there in the woods that probably knew we were here. I could hear the crunching of the leaves as they walked on the ground along with loud whispering, though I couldn't understand what they were saying. My girlfriend softly tells me that she thinks they're speaking Portuguese, but wasn't 100% sure. Now, this next part is something straight out of a horror movie. Both of us are just sort of sitting beside a large tree from where our fire was, and she was just kind of dismissing the people as harmless. We thought that if they wanted to do something to us, they already would have and just brushed them off. Not even 10 seconds later, shit hit the fan when a large arrow from a crossbow strikes the tree just an inch above my girlfriend's head.
Jeez Louise! Oh boy, you got some dangerous people in there. In the woods with you. Man, if you brought a weapon, it'll be a good time for you to fire yours off just to scare them away. Man, she moved her head up near the tree a little bit further. They probably would have struck her dead in the head. Golly. Oh, seeing that would make my heart drop.
She screams her lungs out, and I tell her to get the stuff and that we had to run. Just to be safe, I pull out my judge and fire a few shots into the woods to try and scare off whoever was out there.
There you go.
Unfortunately, my tactics didn't work as they only fired more arrows that nearly missed us. I don't think they followed us, but I just remember telling my girlfriend to keep running. We didn't know where we were going as it was pitch black out with the only source of light being the moon. Just saying, running through the woods in the middle of the night not knowing where to go is absolutely horrifying. Eventually, we reach a road and hitched a ride from a passerby who took us to the nearest town. Authorities were contacted, but there was ultimately nothing they could do other than to, quote, keep an eye out. The Montana woods are massive and vast, so the chances of ever finding the people responsible were slim. A buddy of mine theorized that we may have been on private land and that they had purposely not shot us with the arrows to scare us away. However, that didn't make any sense, as you would think they would come up to us, and I'm not so sure if you can own property on something that's state-owned. The alternative would just simply be that they were just some forest people who saw a crime of opportunity and decided to take it. After a few years, Sydney and I had a falling out and ended our relationship on good terms. I still go camping by myself here and there, but thankfully hadn't had any dangerous encounters as of yet.
Yeah, no, I agree with this guy. A person wouldn't shoot nobody if they were accidentally trespassing on their land, and if it is also state-owned, there's no way nobody can buy land on something like that, unless they were filthy rich, of course. But other than that, like he said, the person should have walked up to him and asked them what they're doing on his property, but not shoot a lot of arrows at him. And those guys weren't afraid when he started firing off his gun. I would jump if I heard a gunshot out of nowhere. But it seemed like they wanted to scare them out of their campsite. Well, they did a good job doing that. I'm just glad they got out of there all right and didn't get hurt otherwise.
I'm a father of 4, and man, do I have a story to tell you. My wife and I both own a logging company outside of Charlottesville, Virginia, and primarily make our income through there. The business didn't start off great, but over time it improved significantly. My kids are both in middle school and are the best things I could ever ask for. My daughter is the youngest, while my son was just a year older than her. Back in the summer of 2019, we had taken a family camping trip down to the Carolinas as the highlight of our summer vacation. We had PTO, the kids were on summer break, it worked out perfectly. We had gone out to this really popular family campground in North Carolina, which was the ideal spot for the family. I helped my kids build their tent while my wife built ours we'd be staying in. Now, this campground isn't just some small area of the woods with a few small buildings. This place was huge, and you were pretty much allowed to set up your camp however far out you wanted. After we all got situated, my wife tells us that we should all go down to the dining hall for some dinner and dessert. With there being some buildings like the dining hall and a visitor center, it wasn't a real camping trip, but it was still fun for the family.
Me personally, if I was camping, I would bring my own food to cook because you never know if there was a place that had a dining hall, you don't know what they'd be having. That's strange. I never even heard of a campsite with a dining hall, unless it was one of them big campgrounds and they have facilities and stuff. And it won't be like true outdoor cooking. But anyway, let's continue on Let's see what happens to them next.
We ate what food staff was serving, along with maybe 3 or 4 other families also camping here. After dinner, we walked about 20 minutes before we went back to our campsite to get some sleep, as we had planned on going fishing in the morning. I made sure my kids were asleep in their tent by 9, while my wife and I just read our books in our tent until we got tired. After a bit, we sort of drifted off to sleep, and I'd say I slept for a good few hours or so. Now, let's fast forward to maybe a couple hours later. It was well into the night when I, for some reason, had this really weird dream/feeling. There's no real way to describe it without sounding morbid, but I was dreaming about my head being pinned with something sharp. Nobody in this dream was there but me, and the only thing I could really describe about it was the pain on my head. This went on for a good few minutes before I started to slowly wake up when I realized that the sharp pain persisted. I remember feeling around the top of my head, only to find that it was also wet, along with a low noise coming from behind me. Right then, my wife wakes up and screams her lungs out, spitting out the words to go away. I turn around, and there, standing right in front of the tent opening, is a red fox in its defensive position. It growls at us before my wife manages to scare it away with her shoe. Turns out, that pain I was feeling was a damn fox clamping at the back of my head. And the reason why my head felt wet was because of the blood running down.
Oh, man, you wouldn't think that a fox would get into your tent if it's all sealed up. Yeah, I'd be terrified and mad at the same time if that happened to me. But his wife needs to get a first aid kit and bandage his head up and also make sure he gets a rabies shot. Because you never know, that fox might have rabies. But man, you're just peacefully sleeping and all of a sudden that had to happen. Ay, ay, ay. That's bad. Can't even enjoy a good night's sleep in the woods.
At this point, my kids were wide awake crying when they realized what was happening. Right then, I began to feel sudden dizziness before almost falling to the ground. My wife had called the front desk of the campground, and they had sent their medical team or whatever before rushing me to a hospital. After a couple of days, I did make it through and obviously recovered. Turns out, though, we had set up our tents in a spot right next to a fox's nest that we didn't see. The fox probably mistakenly saw us as a threat to her and her cubs and did anything to protect them. It's been years now, and I am fully recovered. It's just crazy to think that my dream turned into a reality.
But you would think when you get there that the campground people would tell you where to place your tent and where not to place it. But I would have been investigating the area first to make sure we're not near any fox or wolf or bear den, because I wouldn't want one of them creatures attacking me. And it's strange thinking that he was dreaming that he was getting pinned down, but then all of a sudden he wakes up as a fox biting on him. Thank God his wife did the right thing and called the front desk and got him to the hospital. Because if he didn't, he probably would have got dizzy from bleeding out too much. And possibly died from the bite wound, you know. But thank God he recovered quickly.
This happened about 9 years ago when my girlfriend and I were going backpack hunting in British Columbia. Looking back, this sounds like a story from a horror movie, but I can assure you that this is 100% true. It's also a bit of a strange story, so buckle up. My girlfriend, who is now my wife, loved the outdoors, as did I, but not as much as she did. It was our 4th anniversary of being together, and we decided to go camping in the northern mountains of Canada. We've been through several parts of the US before, but decided that we'd give another country a try. We planned on staying in the mountains for about a week, and I packed enough supplies to last us until then. These mountains are massive, and you definitely didn't want to be left with no resources out here. I don't want to bore you with the small details, so I'll just jump right in. We had found this neat little spot to set up camp that was appropriate for the two of us, and even had a small ravine nearby for fishing. Our first 2 nights of camping went decently well, and it wasn't until the third night where my girlfriend brought up the idea to do some midnight hunting. I was nearly on the verge of passing out after a long day, but she had seemed excited about it, and I wasn't going to say no to the love of my life. In the end, I had to agree, and we changed into warm clothing and grabbed our gear. Now, we obviously weren't just going to go wandering into the woods, so we decided to stay by our tent and light a fire to scare away any potential predators. We both had a pair of night vision binoculars so we could see better, even though it was likely we wouldn't find a game at this time of night. Anyway, there we are, scanning the trees for any deer when I thought I heard rustling maybe about 20 feet away. I knew for sure it had to be an animal, as there were many creatures that come out at night, and it very well could have been a deer. We both grabbed our guns, trying to spot whatever made that noise, hoping to get a shot at it. We scanned the trees for a good minute or so, before I turned to my wife and see her stiff as a board. She's looking off at something into the trees, and when I ask her what's wrong, she doesn't reply. All she did was continue to stare in the direction of the woods, and when I looked in her direction, I saw it too. About maybe 20 yards away is a set of glowing eyes that were maybe about 10 feet off the ground. It was a little hard to hear, but we could hear heavy breathing coming from that direction, which gave us the chills. I also know it couldn't have been a bear, as the height difference didn't match that of any bear known to man. Trust me, I've been experienced with wildlife to know that what I was seeing was definitely no bear. Whatever it was massive, and I could tell you right now that this was no creature we've ever seen. Some way, somehow, I find the courage to tell my wife very calmly that we needed to get back inside the tent and to not make a sound. However, she doesn't respond and just looks at me with her wild eyes and face. I didn't want to draw more attention to this creature than we already did, so I direct my wife to the tent and we get inside not making a peep. All the while, I prayed that the fire didn't go out anytime soon, as that was probably the only thing preventing this creature from coming to us. 30 minutes felt like 30 hours as we both just laid there and heard multiple branches and trees snapping as this creature moved through the woods. It's safe to say that I didn't get a minute of sleep that night, and rightfully so. When morning came, my wife and I got out of our tent and found tracks of this supposed creature. They were tracks I had never seen from any living creature known to man, even after desperately trying to identify them. Till this day, I'm still unsure as to what it was we saw. I don't know if it was some unidentified creature. I don't know if it was Bigfoot. All we know is that there was indeed something tracking us out there, and that the woods have secrets that have yet to be uncovered.
Whoa, that story was interesting. First, I'm with them. If I wanted to travel somewhere else, I'll probably want to try Canada. That's definitely on one of my places to go list. 2, your wife says she wants to go midnight hunting. Yeah, you better not argue with her on that. But yeah, it'd be kind of creepy a little bit when you're hunting at night, unless you have a night vision scope on your gun. But then when you see a pair of glowing eyes that are like 10 feet off the ground, that's something that will give you nightmares forever, I tell you. And he didn't know what it was, but I can tell you right now it was probably a Bigfoot. If you found tracks, God, they had that fire going, because that was the only thing keeping it away from their campsite. Then I know that creature might have moved in and started whacking the tent or something to wake you up. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications for more Mr. Haunted content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I said that's a wrap, and have a nice day, y'all.